Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be creating a card using the new Speckled Star Stencil as well as the Bunny Balloons 2 stamp set. I started out by using some painter's tape to hold my cardstock to my stencil, and then I globbed a bunch of some transparent gloss texture paste at the top, and then I used my stencil pal to drag the texture paste down my cardstock. I had initially planned on doing some ink blending first and then use the transparent texture paste on top of that, but I forgot to do the ink blending and I decided that I was just gonna go with it to see what happened. And it turned out to be a very happy accident. Anyway, after I had my texture paste spread across my cardstock, I very carefully removed the stencil from my cardstock. And one thing to note is you do want to clean your tools and your stencil right away when using a texture paste so that it doesn't dry on your stencil or your tools. Now, because I forgot to do the ink blending before I did the texture paste stenciling, I set that panel aside and I did let it dry overnight because I had to kind of rethink my idea. And I was really hoping that this was going to work, and I was very pleasantly surprised that the texture paste resisted the ink when I started to do the ink blending. I decided to use 3 different shades of blue ink and randomly blended that around my card panel. I did do the ink blending twice to get the cardstock nice and saturated so that the inks would blend together, and I also wanted to add in a little bit of a deeper blue, particularly around the star in the center, so that it would really stand out nicely. Once I was done with the ink blending, I used a dry paper towel just to buff off that texture paste and pick up any of the excess ink. And by wiping off the excess ink, it really made the star and all those speckles stand out. I set that panel aside so that the ink could dry completely, and then I stamped this little bunny onto a piece of watercolor cardstock. And I did very simple coloring with some Zig clean color brush markers. I'll make sure to have all of the colors that I used listed down below, as well as all of the products that I used. When it comes to watercoloring, I tend to use entirely too much water, but I had watched Lisa's video on her no-line coloring, and she had mentioned what a difference the blender pen had made for her, so I thought that I would give it a shot, and it definitely does make a difference. The blender pen definitely spreads the color out a lot easier, especially because I tend to use too much water. I'll make sure to link to Lisa's video at the end of this video so you can see her take on the Zig clean color brush pens as well. After I was done coloring the bunny, I did run it through my brother's scan cut to cut it out, and off camera I was kind of playing around with the layout and decided that the bunny needed another balloon. So I stamped the single balloon with the words "Wish Big" onto that scrap of watercolor cardstock and just colored it in really quickly. And for this balloon, I just used my scissors to fussy cut it out. And when I did fussy cut it, I did cut right up against the stamped line so that there would be no white shadow. Now, when I had run the bunny through my brother's scan and cut, I did do an offset so there was that white shadow around it. To get rid of the white border, I just used one of the blue Zig brush pens to color in around it. And of course, because I did decide to add in a 3rd balloon, I had to trim off some of that excess border from the other 2 balloons so that there wasn't a blue border between the 2 that he's holding and the 3rd balloon that I added. I used liquid glue to adhere the big balloon to the bunny with the balloons. And then, of course, I had to add a whole bunch of foam tape on the back of my bunny. Once I had all of that release paper removed from my foam tape, I adhered that to the front of my stenciled and ink blended panel, which I had run through my die cut machine using the wavy pierced rectangle die. Once I was happy with the placement, I pressed him into place. I had also die cut a piece of yellow cardstock using the same wavy pierced rectangle die and used my tape runner to adhere my stenciled panel to that. And when I did adhere it, I offset it a little bit just so that the yellow shadow would be along the top and along the left-hand side. I adhered that to the front of a top folding A2 size note card. And then I used a white gel pen to add some dots in the areas where the image wasn't cut out, and I had to color it in blue just so that it looked a little bit more cohesive. And of course I had to add sparkle to the balloons, so I used my Wink of Stella glitter pen for that. And then I used a white gel pen just to add some highlights to the balloons. And that's it. That finishes up my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. Don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.